Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Oh, Tony, I might be going to Boston. I might be staying in Columbus. I don't know. It's an exciting time for all of us, isn't it?
No, Tom, it's not. It's kind of
Oh,
just a
no.
holding pattern
Mm.
as everybody waits and gets conflicting information by the hour, which is incredibly frustrating in all of this. Uh, but still, as of this recording, which we are it's 11:52 on a Tuesday, late morning, nothing new on the Bill O'Brien front. And if you'd like to hear Tom and I talk more about that, you can check out Tuesday morning's Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning Show, where we discuss that matter and everything involved with it. So you can find that discussion there. We don't really need to talk more about it here, other than nothing has happened yet, and nothing maybe until this weekend, but we will see. Nothing is definitive in this race for Bill O'Brien until it is done and set. So we will wait until then. Continue to reach out to people to see if we hear anything for the latest information, but the information keeps changing. So anyway, Tom, big news on Tuesday. It is announced that the spring game tickets will go on sale Friday. General admission, you can get in for as low as $10. The reserved sections upwards of $22 to and $37. So a far cry from, hey, bring a can of corn 20 years ago and we'll let you in. And don't try to bring in something that is damaged. A box of elbow macaroni is not going to do it. We want a can of corn, even some green beans, no lima beans. But $10 to get in. Last year it was $7. Tom, is this the cost of doing NIL business?
Well, Tony, as you know, these schools don't pay the players, so it really has nothing to do with NIL. I think this is I think the cost of everything is going up, and the cost of running, the cost of opening the stadium and paying all of the red coat, whoever is involved in. I don't know, are the red coats paid? They are, right? I think the red coats are paid. The ushers, I don't know if they're paid or volunteers. This feels like something that I
I
should know.
Tom, they're paid in power,
Mm.
and if you
Mm.
backtalk them, they will put you down. That is what they are paid in. The love of the power that they don't have in their daily lives, they get to have on the weekends. But no, I think it's just the love of the game and also the love of watching the game.
Yeah, the love of watching the game, the love of wearing a spiffy red coat. Yeah, that's either way. Regardless, there are costs associated with running the stadium and entertaining 75 to 100,000 people on a Saturday afternoon in April. Saturday, April 13th. We have sort of known that date. I already had that. I went to put that in my phone. I'm like, oh, that's been in my phone for a long time already. So apparently it was not a surprise to me that it was Saturday, April 13th. It was sort of the date I think everyone had assumed, but that's where it is. So yeah, I mean, this is going to be one of the more anticipated spring games I think in the last couple decades, because you go back and there are certain years like the year Terrell Pryor was Terrell Pryor like a spring enrollee. I was trying to remember because he
I don't
committed
think so
so
because
late. I don't think he was.
yeah, he committed like fully committed in like March, if I recall. So
Yeah, I mean, like Braxton Miller, I think that year was an exciting
mhm.
one where you've got the 5-star quarterback and what is this going to look like? You have those years, and the year after the national championship in 2002. Usually, the year after a championship, you get a pretty good bump in the attendance there. This is going to be one where, boy, everyone is back. I don't know how much the guys who are back are actually going to play. We'll see. But there's a lot of new guys as well, where everyone's going to want to see Caleb Downs. Everyone's going to want to see Quinshon Judkins. Everyone's going to want to see Tony. Everyone's going to want to see Julian Sayin. I don't know how much Julian
Mhm.
Sayin's going to play, how much he's going to throw the ball, but boy, is everyone going to be excited to see Julian Sayin and Aaron Noland and all these new guys. Tony Jeremiah Smith's going to be there. There's going to be a lot of hype around that game, and you know the game is always kind of it is what it is, but it's also generally a relatively warm, one of the first really nice weekends of the year, kind of, and everyone's so excited to be outside. And this year, the game itself is going to have some draw to it as well.
You will appreciate that in the spring game ticket story that I wrote. I did say that the $10 would purchase the entire seat, but you will only need the edge.
Tony, is the game on Saturday?
Yes, it is. 12 p.m. kickoff. Be there or be square. You mentioned a handful of names. I'll throw in Aaron Noland, Lincoln Keynoles. I wrote a piece for Tuesday about doing the series on replacing starters, how they're going to replace each starter. And I finally got to Kyle McCord, and I wrote, Devin Brown and Will Howard will be in the mix. They'll compete this spring. And somebody on the board mentions, do we even know if Devin Brown is going to be healthy? And I'm like, oh, we technically don't know that Devin Brown is going to be recovered from his ankle sprain. So we will we'll talk to Ryan Day on Wednesday on signing day and get that information. So I had completely glossed over that fact in my mind because you figure that would have been, 2 months ago at this point, or by the time they get rolling, that he would be fine. But it is some house cleaning that we will need to do. But if you're going to drop $37 on the spring game, is that the type of person that stays for the entire game, Tom, or is that the type of person that leaves at halftime of almost any sporting event that they go to? Like they can afford to drop it, and then they can afford to drop out.
Yeah, I can tell you that looking over at the club seats, and the red standalone seats in the fourth quarter of the spring game, usually you see a lot of red over there, and it's not people wearing them. It's like when you see a lot of maroon in the upper deck of the Schottenstein Center. This year, it's much the same. Yeah, I think you're going there. You're going there to go. You're paying the luxury price. That's the price to watch the first stringers. No one is paying $37 to watch walk-ons, Tony. That's not what that's all about.
We will get to see Aaron Nolan versus Julian Sand. Like, this is where it's going to start. You'll get to see that. Obviously everybody's will be interested in seeing Will Howard for the first time, what he can do there. But I'm not expecting more than a series from like all of the defensive starters who returned. You get those guys out. The last thing you want is to bring them back for their senior year and then something to happen in the spring game. So they'll be cautious with those guys. But again, it's the spring game. It's always fun up to a point. It's exciting to get excited about. And then somewhere around, I don't know, about 1:15 in the afternoon, you're like, well, wish this would wrap. Can we do a running clock? Can we just let's get it going. But if the weather is nice, regardless of ticket price, I think this is going to do pretty good. Although $22 and $37, say what you want, it's $7 more than it was last year, each of those seats, which I think everybody expects stuff to go up. But it all depends on the weather as to the attendance. And this is going to be very anticipated, a bunch of stuff to see and to watch. But if it's 47 and rainy, you're going to get 47,000 if you're lucky. If it's 70 and sunny, look out. You could be up there in the 90s. So I'm always interested to see. Usually, Tom, I start checking the weather about 17 days out. So, we're only about a month away or so.
That's a tremendous use of your time, checking weather forecast 3 weeks out. Yeah, there is a site where you can start looking, and I know, I think they will project like a month out, like AccuWeather or something does like a month out, and I know that you have started somewhat tongue-in-cheek doing that on about October 25th for the Michigan game and posting that online and getting people all riled up for no reason whatsoever. But, I don't know. What's the functional difference between $10 and $7 a ticket? I don't know that anyone who can afford a $7 ticket plus whatever the surcharge is not going to be able to afford a $10 ticket plus whatever the surcharge is. Even if you've got a family of 6, it's like, okay, that's an extra $20, whatever, with the fees and all that. So I will sort of make my case once again for the spring game is actually a great place to go if you have little kids and you want to take your little kids to a game, because your little kids don't know the difference between a real game and the spring game. They just want to go. Like when my daughter was about 3, I think I took her and I just said, "Where would you like to sit?" And she said, "By the band." And I said, "Okay." And we sat by the band and just listened to the band and watched the game, and it was great and whatever. This is a great time to let your kids go see a game where you're not paying $75 to $180 per ticket, and you're not, you can go see the first half, and if your kids are tired, you can just leave, and it's okay because it doesn't matter. It's just like, go have a fun day. It's like taking your kid to a minor league baseball game, and it's just like, just go have popcorn and go have ice cream and have this in your brain, be like, oh, this is a fun thing I want to do later again. I want to come back there again. That's a great time to do that. And then, for you as a parent and or Ohio State football fan, you can watch it, and you can watch it kind of closely, and you're going to, 3 days after this game, you're going to remember 3 plays maximum from this game. Maximum. You're not going to remember like, oh, well, they had this off tackle run for 8 yards. That is gone. That is out of your head before you even find your car in the parking lot. You're going to remember, like, there was the year that Justin Fields was the first year quarterback. Mm-hmm. I challenge anyone to remember anything in that game other than the 99-yard touchdown pass from Justin Fields to Ben Victor. Everything else is just vapor. It doesn't matter. It's fine. Like, just go sit in the sun, have fun with your kids, and watch a football game for about as cheaply as you can do it.
I believe he was 4 of 13 in that game, something to that effect. But I've told this story before about how the first time I ever went to a spring game, it would have been, I think, middle school or junior high, and my buddy's dad won tickets on the radio. I'm like, holy crap, we've got tickets for this spring game. This is like the biggest thing that has ever happened. Meanwhile, this is the same radio station that would do like a pop quiz every day where you would win like a case of Pepsi. And that was always like, oh, did you hear who won the pop quiz today? And it would be like the neighbor or your cousin or whatever. And it was always like, yeah, won the pop quiz. That's me. Would you like a soda? Too bad. Or pop. I'm sorry, not soda.
Yes, we had a soda quiz on the radio where I grew up, but that's this is one of these things where it's this wonderful low stakes thing. And I don't know if you've gone to a high school football game recently, but high school football games you're paying like $7-10 bucks to go to. So to go for an Ohio State football game and have it be the same thing, that's fine. I don't find, if you're sitting in the $37 seats, you can absolutely afford to sit in the $37 seats. That's still not very expensive. And if you want those are substantially more expensive in the fall than they are for the spring game. So, if you want to treat yourself even to the 22, where are the $37 seats? Is that like between the 40s in the club seats or something?
I'm guessing, yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to treat yourself to that, that's still, you can watch a very good football team scrimmage for $37 between the, in very good, comfortable seats. Or, I got to tell you, $37 doesn't get you a ticket to watch the Blue Jackets. And have you seen the Blue Jackets, Tony? I mean, it's not great. It's not outstanding at all.
I will say, if you do go and decide to treat yourself and sit in those $37 seats, remember, when you're drinking your Miller Lite, have the pinky extended. You still have to operate as if you belong there. If you act like you belong there, nobody will question you. So, look forward to that. Of course, I mentioned that we talked to Ryan Day on Wednesday. Tom, you and I were just talking before the show. When was the last time we talked to him? And I believe we've come to the conclusion that it was the Missouri post game. So I don't know if everybody remembers all of the things that have happened through January. There's a show Tom and I did tomorrow morning show a while back, and that was through like the first 3 weeks of January, and that could have been an hour show. So there is a lot to cover with Ryan Day tomorrow. We probably, if I had planned this show better, Tom, I could have just said like top 10 things we're looking forward to talking to Ryan Day tomorrow. And maybe I'll make that the title of the show since I just said it. But I mean, the coaching situation, the Bill O'Brien situation, the additions, the subtractions there, the more on the Jeremiah Smith, the Will Howard decision, because that's all happened. All of the transfers to Caleb Downs. There is so much to talk about with him, Tom. Is there one thing? What is the one thing that you're looking forward to getting an answer from, or at least attempting to get an answer about?
Boy, there's a lot. I was just thinking as you were talking, the difference in the mood for Ryan Day the last time we talked to him during post-game. The difference in the mood. Think about the difference in the mood between the Ohio State fan base then and now, and the difference in Ryan Day's mood then and now. The difference in the trajectory of the program then and now. I mean, I would love to. I would love to ask him all about the coaching change at Michigan. I suspect we won't get an answer on that. But I think you've got the transfer portal. They've been so much more aggressive in the portal this year, and they've brought back all of these different guys. So it's not like they had, they're not like Michigan where they have 5 offensive linemen they need to replace. They only had a few different spots where they needed to upgrade, and they were more aggressive, it seems like, in the portal this year with fewer holes to fill than they have been in the past. So I would be interested to know why. What's the difference this year? I don't think you're going to get the actual answer, which is, I can feel the pressure all around me. It's, I'm like one of those diving bells, basically. I don't think you're going to get that answer, but I think there's that is going to be an interesting conversation to have and see what the response you get would be.
Yeah, the trying to get something out of him and a bunch of these topics. I would be interested to know the conversation that he had with Aaron Noland about Julian Sayin, because that is something. The conversation with Devin Brown about Will Howard. Well, we're going to keep that behind we'll keep that in the walls of the Woody. The conversations that we have, obviously. But there's a bunch of stuff that we'll have him for 30 to 45 minutes. And I don't know if Jerry Emig, SID, will try to, keep it. Let's just keep it short. You guys talked to him on the last signing day. You already talked about all of the signing day, all of the guys that came in. It's like, Jerry, there has been a lot. We don't care about signing day. Tell me about Dominic Kirks. All right, thank you. Now we will progress forward to asking about new players, new coaches, and everything else. Just like you said, the mood of the program, the pressure now to get the most out of these guys. The conversation with Brian Hartline about, hey, man, I'm going to put a little CO- next to your title and go from there. So hopefully we get about 45 minutes, and he's going to be peppered with questions throughout. We will be talking about it at BuckeyeHuddle.com one way or another, YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle, about everything that he has to say. So I would suggest tuning in for that. And if you are watching this on YouTube right now, go ahead and hit the bell to be notified when we drop whatever videos we talk about from there. And of course, if you're not yet subscribed on your podcast platform of choice, do that. Obviously, you'll get that dropped into your feed. So that's Ryan Day on Wednesday. The other big news, I guess, at this point, when a crystal ball drops on somebody, when it's from like Steve Wiltfong, that is big news. He put a crystal ball in on Monday for 5-star Maryland safety Faheem Delane, the number 1 safety in the 24/7 rankings for 2025. From Our Lady of Good Counsel, Tom, do you know Ohio State has one player from that school right now on the roster? Do you know really quickly who it is? I won't make you go through the entire roster.
Show me Mitchell Melton.
There you go. Good job, Tom. And Mitchell Melton, indeed. Do you know who the most recent player from Good Counsel was, Tom? I won't ask you to go through the last 6 years of rosters, but
Keandre Jones is the name that is popping to mind. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct, Tom. Look at you. Your Maryland brethren.
Crab Cakes football and random Ohio State football former and current players. That's what Maryland does.
So a pipeline of sorts. That seems like if it's going to happen, it could happen at any point. Like I said, he is the number 1 safety in 2025. And Tom, you have talked with Mark Givler about this secondary class. I've talked to it with him. We did a show when Naeem committed, talking about this secondary class. You and I don't know. We've talked a little bit about it, but right now, the way things are going, and that's always a dangerous thing, especially when recruiting, especially even before summer, because we have talked before about, and I don't know if it was a year or 2 ago, the way things are going with this defensive line class. You got the Damon Wilson, you've got the Mateo Uyunglele, you've got this guy, you've got that guy. If they get all of these guys, but of course, I don't believe they got any of those guys. Still, if these trends continue,
if they had,
with the secondary class, because you got Devin Sanchez committed, you got Offord committed, the top two corners. If they can land Delane and the number two safety in the 24/7 composite, of course, is Trey McNutt, Ohioan Buckeye legacy. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. And they've also, by the way, got the number 10 corner in the class also committed already. So you've got the number 1, number 2, and number 10 corners committed. You've got the number 4 corner, Dorian Brew, who's an Ohio native, who's down in Texas now, who is certainly let's at least say they are a strong contender for his services, and we'll see where he ends up. But, you would certainly feel that they're the favorite to land Trey McNutt. You would certainly feel they're the favorite to land Faheem Delane at this point. So, even if you don't get all of those guys, say that they miss on one of the corners, whether it's a decommitment or they don't get Brew, or they only get one of the two safeties, you're looking at minimum 2 of the top 4 corners plus the number 10 corner, and then one of the top 2 safeties in the country. It would be pretty hard for even the most pessimistic Ohio State fan to view that as, oh boy, what a disappointing safety, what a disappointing secondary class. You only got this. And the potential is you could have much more than that. And, there's been talk, does Dorian Brew end up as a safety or a corner? You maybe end up with him and only one of the safeties, and you're still got 3 top 10 corners and 2 safeties. I mean, there's a lot of different ways this can play out. And, there's an old saying, Tony, about chickens and counting and eggs and what have you. But even with there being, 10 months till early signing day, you would much rather be in this place than trying to chase or having, not being viewed as being in the driver's seat for a lot of these guys. There's certainly questions about, okay, someone like Offord who's coming out of the deep South, you've got a commitment. That just means everyone in the South knows who they need to go after. And, as an Alabama guy, what is the Alabama program going to look like 10 months from now? Does Kalen DeBoer come out and go 9-3, and then everyone's immediately speculating, every caller into Feinbaum is talking about how they need to fire him before Halloween? Or, does he come out and do they look like Alabama, and everyone kind of goes, oh, okay, they're still going to be Alabama even without Nick Saban? What does year 2 of Hugh Freeze look like? What does year 3 of Brian Kelly at LSU look like? There's a bunch of, Kirby Smart still at Georgia, famously still at Georgia. So what is Georgia going to look like this fall? They're supposed to be every bit as good as Ohio State. So there's a lot of different things you're going to have to keep an eye on over the next 10 months. But boy, has this been quite a run for Ohio State in recruiting, and they're only like halfway to the class we're sort of speculating on right now. So you don't want to get too far out over your skis. But boy, it's been quite a run for Ohio State in recruiting, especially in the secondary the last few weeks.
Well, and with the secondary, it makes me think of the 2017 class where you had Jeff Okudah, Sean Wade in the secondary. You had Isaiah Pryor was the number 63 player at safety. Kendall Sheffield was the number 1 corner, JUCO corner that they signed that year as well. Brendan White was the number 126 player. Even a guy like Amir Reep was top 200 player. And so, this was Marcus Williamson, another top 200 player. It was a deep class, and they got quite a bit out of some of those guys. I'm just looking right now. Jeff Okudah was the number 8 player in the composite for the Buckeyes, the number 1 corner. Both Offord and Sanchez are ranked ahead of him. They're 5 and they're 6 in this class. Dorian Brew, number 21 player, the number 4 corner. And then you get to the safeties, and it's just as deep, just as good. So I'm wondering, what does this, if this happens, and again, as you said, over the skis, it's up there. It's up there with the 2017 class. The Brew Crew 2008, it could have been better, but it was still pretty good with Mike Adams and Michael Brewster and J.B. Shugarts. They missed on the guard from West Virginia that was supposed to be part of that as well. The 2021 defensive line class with the 4, 3 of them going to be seniors this year. Has Brian Hartline done anything, that is getting Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka in the same class is pretty good. Mm-hmm. Has he done anything comparable? Although getting 2 5-star quarterbacks this year is also pretty spectacular. I don't know. I think what's going on, what is happening, could be unprecedented if it happens. We've got a long way to go. But anything that you can compare it to?
I'm just trying to think through some of the Brian Hartline classes. In 2019, they had Garrett Wilson and Jamison Williams, and no, that was Chris Olave was the year before that. I mean, that was still 2 guys who were top 15 NFL picks. Out of your two recruits at wide receiver that class, both ended up being top 15 picks. For not a particularly deep class, that's a pretty spectacular class. 2020 wide receiver Julian Fleming, Jackson Smith and Jigba, G. Scott. Yeah, I mean you've gotten
Cooper.
A number of years of starting out of those guys. I'm struggling to think of one that has ended up better than those, because 2021 wide receiver, it's all these years blend together.
Mm-hmm. That's Marvin, Emeka, and Ballard.
Yeah, Marvin, Emeka, and Ballard, yeah. 2022, we probably don't need to talk about. 2023, they brought in some, 2023 could end up being in that class where you've got Carnell Tate, you got Brandon Innes. I mean, there's some talent there as well. Bryson Rogers still there. Noah Rogers is, I still am a believer that Noah Rogers is going to pan out, even though he's transferred. There have just been so many great individual group classes. What's interesting to me, though, is you don't have to go back that far for the cornerback room to be like total shambles. The fallout from the Taver Johnson years, they were just desperately short of players. And now, the cast-offs, the guys who are leaving the Ohio State cornerback room because they don't have a clear path to the playing field, 3 years in a row, they've gone to go play for Brian Kelly at LSU, which is like a top 10 program. 3 years in a row, they have lost a corner to LSU. It was Seven Banks, and then J.K. Johnson, and then Jair Brown. If Brian Kelly is taking the guys who are not going to get to play for you, you've got a pretty good room. And, Tim Walton is, I don't know at what point, Tim Walton is the Brian Hartline of the defense, turns into Brian Hartline is the Tim Walton of the offense. Mm-hmm. But it feels like, boy, if they hang on to Offord and they end up with Delane and you get Sanchez and you get McNutt and maybe you get, if you get any combination of those guys, boy, you're in that. Tim Walton might be at the top of the heap.
I will also go back to 2002, the linebacker class at Ohio State at the time, and then also still worked out. But Mike DeAndrea, Mike Kudla was listed as a linebacker by some of the services. Bobby Carpenter, Stan White ended up being a fullback, tight end, but of course also AJ Hawk. So Hawk being the lowest rated, the bum of the group, and turns out to be the number 5 overall draft pick, but pretty good crew there. At some point, if all of this pans out, then I'll go back and look and just compare them to, probably do it. You could probably do it position by position. What is the greatest quarterback recruiting class of all time at Ohio State? What is the greatest running back recruiting class of all time? Shame to say 2002, what could have been with Maurice Clarett and Drushawn Humphrey. Humphrey passes of the heart condition. That would have been something special, of course, but it's Ohio State. There are going to be classes, elite classes all the time. Jeff Hireman and Nick Vanette in the same class, if I recall. That's not bad to get 2 NFL tight ends in the same class.
Were Luke Farrell and Jeremy Ruckert in the same class, or was Farrell a year ahead? I think they left after the same year, but I think Farrell might have left a year earlier.
Farrell and Jake Hausman were in the same class.
Okay.
Yeah, 1 year before that, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so there you go. Tom, anything else before we get out of here?
No, I think I'm just looking forward, like you said, to talking to Ryan Day on Wednesday, and the 100,000 things that we could ask Ryan Day about, and hopefully get answers on at least 12 to 15 of them would be great, and we'll see. But boy, it has been it has been an eventful month in Ohio State football, and I'm looking forward to getting his perspective on all of that, because I think his outlook on everything has probably improved quite a bit since the last time we saw him.
Yeah, and so make sure to keep us locked in at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We will hopefully also be talking to some of the assistant coaches when everything is settled for sure, perhaps in a week or two, and then maybe some early enrollees, we'll see, or maybe some of the juniors who decided to stay. That stuff is still up in the air, but obviously spring football is, I don't know if it's exactly a month away, but it is very close. As I quickly check my calendar before we get out of here, I am calling spring football for March 5th, which is a Tuesday, which is exactly, Tom, a month away in that sense. So 1 month out, maybe 29 days, 28 days because of this leap year, 30 days, I'm not sure. But we are very, very close, 4 weeks away, I guess I would say, from the opening of spring football, officially, unofficially, for the Buckeyes. So that will do it. I want to thank you all for tuning in, as always. And like I said, you can find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Become a member if you have not yet. Join up, hit us up on the message board, check out the content behind the paywall. And, of course, you can always find us at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle as well for this podcast, for Tom's Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning, for Kevin's Big Me Kickoff, for Mark Givler's Skull Session Recruiting Podcast. And, of course, those are all podcasts available on all of your platforms. So subscribe to each of those as well. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.